Are you being sabotaged at work? Let's face it, company politics can get dirty. And whether it's office gossip, a bad boss, or backstabbing coworkers, someone you work with might be trying to step on you in order for them to get ahead. What can you do about a sabotaging boss or sabotaging coworkers? And how can you make sure that they're simply an annoyance at work and don't do actual damage to your career? Well, that's exactly what we're talking about today. If you're ready, tap that like button and let's jump straight into it. The first step when you're dealing with sabotaging behavior at work is to assume ignorance, not sabotage. I know this is easier said than done, and then at least one of you is probably going to accuse me of being naive in the comments. Here's the thing. I truly do not believe that most people are vindictive, toxic coworkers who would sacrifice you at the altar of the career success gods. But ask me if I think some people are unaware of the impact of their actions and are a good smidge selfish? Well, I'd place my wager there. Where would you place your bet? In my experience, when you assume the worst of people, you get just that, the worst. But assume they intend their best, even if they're showing up at their worst. And now you're in a position to lift them up to your level. Does this mean that no one is a toxic AF person and this alone will solve all of your problems? No, but your energy impacts your approach to the problem. Raise your vibe to shine and then carry on to step 2 with dealing with sabotaging behavior at work. And do a damage assessment. Not all sabotaging coworkers are created equally, after all. For example, a sabotaging coworker who has little impact or influence on your team, while frustrating, is futile. However, a sabotaging boss who has the position and authority to promote you or make decisions about keeping you around, well, that has higher damage potential. Ask yourself this question: what is the worst they can do? What I find most typically in these scenarios is sabotaging coworkers try to undermine you at work. They drag you into unwanted office gossip tailor-made to make you look bad. And they will do their best to create obstacles for your career success, such as omitting you from a key meeting and saying it was an oversight, removing you from email strings by accident, or simply and regularly slathering your ideas and contributions with unhealthy doses of their skepticism. Leaning back and accepting their sabotaging behavior at work is not going to cut it. Even if you hate playing games at work, like I do, it's still time to make some political moves to insulate yourself from the damage that a sabotaging boss or a sabotaging coworker can do to your career. And that brings us to step 3 in dealing with sabotaging behavior at work, and that is finding workarounds. One of the most common sabotaging behaviors at work is to have a boss or a coworker who is putting obstacles in your way. Hoops to jump through, if you will. For example, your boss suggests that you work with who is actually your sabotaging coworker to get key information on an initiative that you own. Naturally, your sabotaging coworker does what sabotaging coworkers do. They refuse to give you the information that you need. They don't reply to emails or Slacks or carrier pigeons. In instances like this, look to see if there's another person that you can get information from or access that information in a system like your CRM. This honestly is not going to apply in all situations. And when you're being sabotaged at work by a toxic boss or a bad manager, it's going to be more complex for you to navigate than if it's a competitive coworker. But trying to find ways to navigate around the sabotaging behavior is a necessary step. You'll still need to implement the next step. And in my opinion, this is the most important one. Amplify your awesomeness at work. Your sabotaging coworker or sabotaging boss is working to undermine you at work and to discredit you. They're trying to look better by making you look bad. However, when you've implemented this step, that becomes nearly impossible. And you've heard me talk about this before. You need to know what your unique awesomeness quotient, your UAQ, is. And you need to bring it to life. Both your professional reputation and your personal brand is built on your UAQ. And when it's established, it's hard to shake. For example, your sabotaging coworker is going to have a hard time convincing anyone you are difficult to work with when you're a known collaborator. In fact, they might end up looking bad there. And even in the worst case scenario, your UAQ is going to give you exit options. Now, you might be like, I don't know my UAQ and I definitely don't know what to do with it. Good thing I have a free resource that's going to help you out. It's linked in the description bar down below. Once you're out there being all awesome, you need to make sure that you implement the next step. If you don't, don't, you're leaving the door wide open for your sabotaging boss or your sabotaging coworker to thieve that credit. You need to keep records and leave a paper trail. Whether the workplace sabotaging is idea thievery, undermining behavior, or anything in that family of toxic workplace behavior, document it. You need to make sure you cover your peach when that sabotaging behavior is around. How do I cover my ass, you wonder? There are a few ways to do this. An easy way is to create records using electronic communications, such as Slack, email, and collaborative documents that track contributions like Google Docs. When that isn't an option, take diligent notes and send summaries to stakeholders. I hate to be the person who's like, CC other people into it. But if you have a sabotaging coworker, looping in your boss, if it's pertinent, might be the right step. And no matter what, make sure that you are regularly communicating your progress and your impacts to your manager. Do not be modest when you do this. However, do make sure that you're concise. And if your boss is the one sabotaging you at work, you can use this communication to denote obstacles in a non-blamey, non-accusatory way, of course. Just stating facts, you know? And that brings me to the next step, which is to talk to them about their sabotaging behavior at work. This one is loaded and it might take caution, but since you're a professional adult, it's time to have a difficult conversation. Throwing back to our first step, we know that this sabotaging behavior is not always intentional. Perhaps you are going to enlighten them to something they were completely unaware of and do them a major solid. I know this is a scary step because, yikes, conflict. Remember that conflict doesn't have to be a bad thing. It can be incredibly productive. You just need to be prepared for it. If the thought of possible conflict terrifies you, I do have a video that will help you prepare that you can check out after this one. And actually, let's take a quick detour to something that's been coming up in the comments lately. Should you get help? And for this, I say you need to escalate with caution. If you happen to be in a supportive workplace, this is a great option. Even if you're not asking for an intervention, in a supportive workplace, your HR team or your manager might provide you great guidance in handling the situation with your sabotaging coworker. However, not all will, and it can make the situation even worse. I'm not saying not to do it. What I'm saying is you need to know what situation and what kind of support you're likely to get if you decide to take that step. If you're interested in a video why I say to take caution, I might make a video that dives into the reasons why. If you're interested in that, can you let me know in the comments down below? For now, we're not going to dwell on it and we're going to move into the next step. Minimize contact as much as possible with your sabotaging coworker or sabotaging boss. The more you interact with them, the more you're subject to their sabotaging behavior at work. Just like workarounds, this one can be complicated and isn't always possible. However, ask yourself if there is a way for you to minimize interactions. Or can you transition those interactions into different modes, like email and instant messenger that creates that paper trail for you. No matter what, when you're dealing with sabotaging behavior at work, whether it's from a sabotaging boss or a sabotaging coworker, the most important thing you can do is stay positive and professional. Their behavior does not define you. Your reaction and how you hold yourself defines who you are. And after all, your goal is not to make them your nemesis, even if that seems to be their goal. And if that is the case and you have a toxic boss or a toxic coworker, you need to proceed accordingly. Which brings me to you choosing your next adventure. Depending on if you are dealing with a toxic boss or a toxic coworker, watch one of these videos next. But before you go, if this video helped you prepare to deal with sabotaging at work, tap that like button. It really helps my channel and it makes you my favorite person. If you haven't already, consider subscribing and becoming one of my career besties. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.